So welcome to Tejedoraknits. My name is Gladys. I am a knitter and crafter based out of Southern Nevada. And today I have a fun new book to go over with you guys. This is the book Romantic Knits by Helene Arnesen. She is a Scandinavian knitwear designer who focuses on vintage historical inspiration, which I think is really cool and unique because we see a lot of the classic Scandinavian minimalist styling in knitting a lot of the time. Um, I like that, but I also like a lot of personality behind my wardrobe and color choices and knits and things like that. So this is right up my alley. I love so many of the different patterns in here. So I just wanted to go over this book with you guys and give you a little bit more information about it. So let's hop right in. So the description that she has for her knits is evoking romantic eras and silhouettes. Knitwear designer Helene Arnesen creates uniquely chic sweaters, tops, and layers you'll fall indefinitely in love with. These 16 feminine, ethereal knit designs are inspired by vintage fashion with thoughtful details like pleated shoulders, lace cuffs, and ribbon ties. So all you have to say is vintage ethereal, and I am there. Those are some of the words that I like to incorporate into my personal style. Vintage, ethereal. I do lean more boho relaxed a lot of the time, and then sometimes a sprinkle of Western into the mix. So like I said, these are beautiful patterns. So let's just hop right into it. The book has 16 patterns. 8 of them are brand new patterns, and 8 of them are from her archives, meaning they're already published patterns of hers. I already had about 3 patterns of hers on my wish list, and I realized that those 3 patterns were all included in this book, so that made it a no-brainer for me. I ended up purchasing the book off of Amazon, which was the most accessible for me. Getting it shipped directly from her publisher from Europe was going to cost me more than the shipping was going to cost me more than the actual book. The book I ended up purchasing for $25. So there are a few different purchasing options. I'll have them linked down below in case you are interested. So the patterns include 5 blouses, 4 sweaters, 3 cardigans, 3 vests, and 1 accessory hood included. In the very beginning, she has nice little introductions on herself and of course the tips, the yarn guide. She also has hand dyed yarn, like a company, I guess, Fabel Knitwear. She has her own yarn lines. So she uses exclusively her yarns for her pattern designing. However, she does provide lots of different alternatives, mostly within, Scandinavian European yarns, which is where she is located out of. So there's some information on different yarn substitutions, the measurements and things like that. So you can substitute in your own yarns or whichever yarns you would like. Some different information on ease, the gauging, a nice little section on shoulder width, on how to adjust the shoulder width, because it is important to some of these patterns to make sure that you have the right fit. And then she does have a note on size inclusivity as well. So most of the patterns are graded up to or include up to the size 3XL. One of them does go up to 5XL. But she does mention that the reason that larger sizes are included is because she didn't have test knitters in that size, and she didn't want to include measurements that have not been test knitted. So she did say that if you want to make one of these larger sizes, to just reach out to her. She will send you the graded pattern for free, just in exchange on giving her your feedback on the fit. So that way it can be included in the pattern. So I like that inclusivity, or that little, I feel like that's a good way of being inclusive when you don't have access to those larger size test knitters. So the patterns, she includes finished bust circumference, not necessarily, the bust circumference is made to fit busts X through Z and give a finished bust of A through B. So I went through the smallest finished bust circumference of these patterns is 31 inches or 80 centimeters. and the largest is 67 inches or 170 centimeters. Now there's a bit of variety between this, again, depending on if the garment is designed with positive or negative ease. It does vary a little bit, but this way I'm not going to be saying the bust circumference in inches and centimeters for every single pattern. I feel like that gets a little bit repetitive, but if you have questions on the specific bust range for any of the patterns, please leave a comment below and I'm more than happy to let you know. So she has that little section on the size inclusivity. She also has QR codes for lots of different techniques that are included in here, which I think is really nice. So that way she has videos for all of the techniques and some thoughts or some comments on the finishing touches, on buttons, on skill level. So a very thorough little introduction. So now moving into the knitting patterns, and I'll scooch over so that we can have them up here. And just to comment on that, at the time that I'm filming, the book exclusive patterns, not all of them have been revealed on Instagram, even though the book has already been released. Hopefully by the time I get around to editing this, they're all there. I'm using the pictures from her Instagram. They're not on Ravelry. So if some of the pictures, if any of the pictures look wonky, that's because I had to scan the picture from the book to put it up here. Hopefully I won't have to do that, but just in case, that's kind of an explanation as to why. So first we have blouses. So the very first one is the Lucrezia blouse, which is one of my personal favorites. The Lucrezia blouse is a romantic garment inspired by the wide lace cuffs of the 17th through 19th centuries. It has a decorative lace pattern around both the hem and the cuffs and voluminous puff sleeves. It has a flattering boat neck and a cropped loose silhouette and is worked top down. So this is made with a mohair held double. It has a lot of the elements that I love. I'll say I love a statement sleeve, a nice big poofy cool sleeve. I am there. I love that so much. And boat neck. I'm also a big fan of boat necks. I've said this a few times on my channel. I do not like turtlenecks or things that are tight to the neck. So I just always modify the neckline if that is the case. I'm wondering if suri is thicker. I'm kind of wondering if I could make this with a single strand of suri as opposed to a double strand of mohair. So that is a thought that I have because I really do want to make this blouse. It is knit on 4mm needles and the gauge is 20 stitches to 4 inches, which is a very common gauge. A lot of the patterns in this book have this gauge. It has that beautiful ethereal look, the little bit of lace on the ribbing waistband and on the cuffs. So overall, it is a beautiful, beautiful pattern. Another thing to note is that, I don't think you can see the wording, the patterns are written in paragraph format. Prose, is that called? Excuse my literature ignorance if that is incorrect. But yeah, it has more of like that written out format. So I know that I really don't mind either way, but if you're picky about your pattern writing, that is just something to keep in mind. The patterns are a bit wordy in that sense. They do have charts though for the lace. It has charts for the lace. It also has instructions on how to include elastic in the neck and the shoulders and the cuffs. That is something that you'll see a little bit more on some of these patterns as well, is that they also have extra finishings that are not just knit, which I think sometimes as knitters we don't want to do those little extra things. I think it really, really adds to the project and to the finished garment. So this one does have some elastic included. Next, we have the Bennet blouse, which I'm sure you will find what the inspiration is. The Bennet blouse is a romantic knit inspired by the Regency era of the early 1800s. The body worked in solid, sparkly Athena, which is one of her yarn bases, which is the fingering weight, is reminiscent of a bodice worn over a delicate gossamer chiffon chemise, with its bust and sleeves worked in luxurious mohair silk. The blouse is worked bottom up and the sleeves are picked up at the end and worked down. So we can tell that this is inspired by the Bennet sisters from Pride and Prejudice. It is spot on. I think this is such a fun garment. I had never seen anything similar to this in the knitwear pattern world, combining those two different types of yarns to give that like she said, that chemise blouse effect. I think it is very cool. So the vest, or like the short shirt part of it, is worked in fingering weight, and then the sleeves, or the mohair portion of it, is worked in, of course, a single strand of mohair. So the body is knit in 4 millimeters and the sleeves in 3 millimeters. And gauge again is also 20 stitches to 4 inches. And it is made to fit with neutral ease. And it has some comments on the bust sizing because it is ruched. You can kind of customize how ruched you want it to fit your own bust size. The next blouse that we have is the Gisselle blouse, another showstopper. So the Gisselle blouse is a romantic and delicate blouse. The ribbed body with its square neckline, all worked in sparkly Athena, perfectly complements the voluminous puff sleeves worked in gossamer mohair silk with their blousing ruffled cuff. This garment is worked from the bottom up with the sleeves picked up at the end. A piece of tulle is sewn into each shoulder for structure, and a piece of elastic cinches the sleeves over the elbows. So wonderful puff sleeve. This is more of a 3/4 length. I think the color choices that she has for this one is beautiful as well. I'm also thinking like this might be a cool pattern if you just wanted to do a tank as well. I think the square neckline is really it looks very nice. This is another one that has that little bit of extra structure with the tulle, adding in these extra elements to elevate the piece a little bit more. Same as the previous one, the body is knit in fingering weight and the sleeves are knit in a single strand of mohair. Recommended needle size for this one is 3.5 millimeters. And the stitch for the ribbing is 26 stitches per 4 inches, and the gauge for this mohair is 18 stitches per 4 inches. This one is recommended to fit with some negative ease. Very thorough instructions on the more complicated techniques, such as adding in the elastics, the sleeve construction, and how to add in the tulle to the shoulders. So lots of fun construction and learning moments in this blouse. Next, we are moving over to the Milkmaid mohair blouse. So this one is a romantic blouse worked in double strands of mohair silk. The design is inspired by the 18th century chemise à la reine, which is popularized by Marie Antoinette. It has a pretty cabled rib and a ruffled bust section threaded with ribbon. So I think one of my favorite details on this one is the ribbing that is included. I mean, the cables that are included in the ribbing. I think that is just such a fun touch. More ruched bust, as we have seen in some of the other patterns. This one is mohair held double on 4mm needles with the cuff and with the ribbing worked in 3mm needles. I wonder if, in the gauges, again, 20 stitches per 4 inches, I'm kind of wondering if this one could be substituted, and I'm sure it can be, with a single strand of fingering weight with a more neutrally rustic yarn. Again, this very historical vibe. I am really loving all of these different historical inspiration in these patterns. It has a note on the ease that the ruching makes it a little bit harder to give an exact measurement, so there is more variety as to how ruched you want it and how you want it to fit over your bust. Next, there is the Paysanne mohair ruffle, which is inspired by the historical peasant blouse, originally worn as an undergarment. It has remained relatively unchanged throughout hundreds of years, with blousing, cuffed sleeves, and a wide neck that can be tied. In this version of the Paysanne blouse, a silk ribbon is used to thread the neckline for a luxurious look, and the iconic ruched cuff finishes the more distinctive historical silhouette. It is worked in 2 strands of mohair silk from the top down. So this is one of the patterns that led me to this book. So she does have a non-mohair version in her pattern archive. So I would likely, and the non-mohair version is worked with a single strand of fingering, and it is also in the same gauge as this one. So this is a pattern that I would like to knit, but I would knit it in single strand of fingering. This is just more practical for me. I love the look of mohair and fluff, but I live in a very warm climate. I don't get to wear my fluffy mohair pieces as much as I would like. Another detail for this one is that I would prefer to just use a plain elastic as opposed to having the ribbon up the front, and that way you could wear it a little bit more off the shoulder as well. So overall, I love this one. The recommended needle size is 4mm, and the classic gauge that she uses of 20 stitches per 4 inches. So this one is intended to be worn with neutral to a few centimeters of positive ease over the bust. So those were the 5 blouses, which is the largest category into this book. So next we are going to move over to sweaters. So the very first sweater is the Victoriana Turtleneck. Victoriana is a chunky yet elegant knit inspired by the iconic cycling sweaters of the 1890s. With its fitted cable body, voluminous mutton sleeves, and warm folded turtleneck, it is everything you want in a Victorian-inspired knit. It is worked from the top down with a tailored shoulder width, stockinette mutton sleeves, and a cabled turtleneck body and cuffs. So this is one of the more, like it said, a little bit chunkier, a little bit more of a warmer knit. It is made with a DK weight and a lace weight held together on 5.5mm needles. So the gauge over the stockinette sleeve is 15 stitches per 4 inches, and the gauge over the cables is 10 stitches per 4 inches. If you live in a cooler climate, I think this would be really fun. Historical vibes on this one is really cool. Very unique, very fun. The poofy sleeves, the cabling, very, very fun. Kind of as mentioned in the description, this one has some more details on getting the right shoulder width because it is very important to get the appropriate fit. So she does have a little bit more of an explanation on making sure that you are getting the right, tailoring it to your personal size. Next is another one of my personal favorites. This is the Oxford Jumper. So the Oxford Jumper is a classic cozy sweater knit top down with 1 strand of mohair silk and 1 strand of glittery Ithlian. It is inspired by the silhouette of the 1890s with its fitted cropped cut and voluminous puff sleeves ending in a fitted cuff. It is a feminine and classic addition to your wardrobe. This classic feminine, it's giving me, I'm going on a yacht for the afternoon, sunglasses, sunset. I love this. I am absolutely going to be making this pattern. It has that little poof sleeve that I love and that wider neckline. It hits all of the boxes for me. So this one is a fingering weight and a lace weight held together. Gauge is a little bit larger, 16 stitches on 4 inches using 4.5mm needles. Intended ease is negative to neutral, between -1.5 to 0 inches of ease. A little bit more fitted with the bigger sleeve. Moving on with the sweaters, we have the Bella sweater up next. It is a classic cabled sweater with a feminine twist inspired by the silhouette of the 1940s. The fitted cropped body with its cabled pattern and the feminine puff shoulder sleeves along with a soft folded neckline make this a great sweater for when you want to look your best in cold weather. So something to note about the fit that she did mention in her Instagram post is that in her modeling of this sweater, it has more negative ease than is intended. So she made this in her normal size, but she was postpartum when she was modeling this sweater. I don't know if that's the case for the rest of them, but she did specify it for this specific pattern, that it is not intended to be as tight as she's wearing it. So that is just something to note. So it is made with a single strand of DK weight yarn. 22 stitches per 4 inches is the gauge on 4mm needles. Really fun. How many times can I say the same thing about all these patterns? They're so fun. They're so cool. I need to find more descriptive words. But the cabling is really nice and classic and neat. And again, that signature little poof sleeve that it has. The cropped fit is also very cute. I like that. And it does have charts for the cables as well. Next is the Pigalle Jumper. The Pigalle Jumper is a casual yet elegant and fun sweater inspired by the iconic Parisian Breton. The striped top we all associate with Parisian fashion today. It is knit top down with a wide waist and voluminous puffed bishop sleeves. We have elegant, fun sleeves, all the things. This one is striped, so it is a DK weight in 2 different colors. Gauge is 17 stitches per 4 inches on 4.5mm needles. I really like the way that this striping combination, at least the colors that she picked, really let the speckling kind of shine in that lighter color. I think this would be a really fun one for hand-dyed yarns. So you can get, I like the way that she paired a tonal with a little bit more of a neutral speckled yarn. I think that is very cool. Ease is recommended 0 to 4 inches of positive ease, so a little bit more roomy than some of the other fitted jumpers that we have seen. And this one has some fun instructions on how to add duplicate sleeves to the very top of the puff sleeve. So that way you're not worrying about striping at the very beginning of the sleeve. I have never done a duplicate stitch, so it's definitely a technique that I would like to learn and do. Those are the 4 sweaters. So now there are 3 cardigans. The very first cardigan is the Aerie Cardigan. Aerie is a fluffy cardi worked in 2 strands of luxurious mohair silk. The body is worked in seed stitch, and the stockinette sleeves have a feminine seed stitch ruffled cuff, working together with a cropped, oversized silhouette and V-neck shaping to create an elegant and feminine, yet cozy and comfy knit. It is worked from the bottom up, and the sleeves are knit on using raglan. This one is much of an oversized, probably her most oversized pattern. Positive ease is between 8 to 10 inches, which is a lot more compared to most of these patterns. In her sample, we can clearly see the buttons. The buttons are the star of the show. Those buttons are beautiful. And they really pair well with that toned down neutral yarn that she has chosen. So it is a mohair held double on 4mm needles for a gauge of 15 stitches per 4 inches in seed stitch. A lot of these projects that you've noticed have a lot of mohair in them. And this is one that I feel like the mohair actually is really part of the base of the pattern. Moving on to more mohair, we have the Camille Bolero. The Camille Bolero is a light gossamer bolero style cardigan that ties at the waist. It has tailored shoulders and elegant elbow-length sleeves. It is perfect to throw over a dress. Historically, boleros are said to originate from the Spanish bullfighters Chaquetilla, first introduced in 18th century Spain. So this is a single strand of mohair. I think it provides a very nice, elegant fit. I actually have 3 balls of mohair in my stash, which have no plants, so kind of thinking this might be a fun one to include it in. It is knit on 3.5mm needles for a gauge of 18 stitches per 4 inches. So this is the one of the patterns that she has the bust measurements, not the finished object measurements, because it is an open construction. So that is a little bit of a note. I'm kind of wondering how it would look with more of a full-length sleeve, but that 3/4 is actually very cute as well. So that is the Bolero. The next cardigan pattern is the Nettle Cardigan. It is a romantic 1940s inspired cardigan with a delicate climbing vine and berry pattern running up the bust. It is worked from the bottom up, back and forth with blousing raglan sleeves. The cozy DK weight yarn gives it great drape. Nettle is perfect over dresses when you're dressing up or with trousers for a more casual yet elevated look. So as mentioned, it is worked in a single strand of DK for a gauge of 17 stitches over 4 inches on 4.5mm needles. I'll be completely honest, I'm not sure how I feel about the tree motif and the baubles in the front. I don't dislike them, but I can't say I really like them either. I don't know. I think this is a really great base cardigan pattern though, so I could see myself making this cardigan without the trees. Again, I'm not entirely sold on the trees, but if you like the trees, this is a very cute pattern. Recommended ease is neutral to positive with approximately 1.5 inches of intended ease. And the tree motif is charted. So those were the 3 cardigans. Now we're going to move on to the 3 vests. First up is the Nutcracker vest, which is a moody vest inspired by the traditional Northern European Nutcracker soldiers with a classic 1940s cut and silhouette. It is perfect wear over blouses, turtlenecks, and dresses, and it is worked in a combination of stockinette, seed stitch, and popcorn. So lots of texture. It has the popcorn baubles. Again, I feel like we are very divisive over baubles, whether we like it or not. I am team no baubles, so I would omit the baubles for this one. So it is worked in DK weight yarn, classic gauge, 20 stitches over 4 inches on 4mm needles. So this one is intended to be worn with 0 to 3/4 inch of negative ease. and it has more of that cropped fit. I love fitted vests. I think that they are very bookish. I'll put it that way. It gives me very studious, bookish vibes, which I really like. So that is a fun one. Next is another one of my personal favorites, which is the Marigold vest. So we'll see if you can find the inspiration for this one. The Marigold vest is a simple, classic stockinette vest. It is loose and comfortable, with a flattering v-neck and a feminine bow closure at the bust. It is inspired by the simplicity of the 1920s. The vest is worked from the top down, back and forth. Pairing Fabel Knitwear Athena and mohair silk gives a luxurious halo and soft sparkle, perfect for design, a classic design such as this. When she posted about this one on her Instagram, I left a comment telling her, I'm watching Downton Abbey and I recognized this fit right away. Very spot on 1920s. And she was like, yes, that is the inspiration for it. Because Marigold, if you have watched Downton Abbey, you would know that Marigold is the daughter of Edith, which is one of the main sisters in the show. So I figured, I was like, I think this is a Downton Abbey inspired piece. And it was. So I found that super fun. I feel like this is a very easy to wear piece. It's one of the pieces that I would like to make. I am thinking, because of its drapey nature, maybe a yarn that has some sort of silk content would be really nice. In her sample, it is done with fingering and a lace weight on 3.5mm needles for a gauge of 19 stitches by 4 inches. Something to note, in her gauge, she doesn't include rows, only the stitch count, which I think is kind of fun. I personally almost never look at my row gauge, so I'm not missing out on that part. This is a really fun piece. I think it's very easy to wear, very classic, very simple. Moving on is the Ithlian vest. Ithlian vest. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that one correctly, but we're going to go with it. The Ithlian vest is an understated feminine vest reminiscent of historical ladies' bodices with a flattering square neckline and cropped fitted look. It is the perfect layer for all outfits. The vest is knit from the bottom up in the round in one strand of fingering weight yarn and one strand of silk mohair held together. So mohair and fingering, as mentioned, on 4mm needles for 18 stitches by 4-inch gauge. This is one that I feel like would be really easy to substitute with a DK weight as well. I think it's very easy to wear, very classic, simple. The recommended ease is neutral to positive, between 0 and 2 inches. And the way that she styles all these pieces are just absolutely beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And the very last pattern, which is the one accessory included, the cabled pixie hood. It is a 1940s inspired hood knit in sparkling Athena and fuzzy mohair silk for a luxurious, cozy winter accessory. It has a decorative cabled pattern running up both sides of the face and a practical cabled scarf that can tie multiple ways for warmth, such as a bow at the front or thrown over the shoulders. It is knit top down and the scarf is sewn on. This is so cute, but I find the pixie fit of it is a bit hard to pull off. I don't think I can pull that off. I'm kind of wondering if I would be able to modify it so it doesn't have that little point at the top of the head. But if you can pull it off, I think this is so cute. Again, it is a fingering and a lace, as it's mentioned, on 4mm needles for a gauge of 18 stitches by 4 inches. So it is a one size item. It doesn't have multiple sizes to it. And very well written explanations on how to attach both of the pieces. It has the cable chart for the cables that are included both on the hood and on the scarf. So I think, again, this is a really cute one. So those are all the included patterns in the book. Overall thoughts. I personally love this, very, as the title says, romantic, whimsical, vintage, airy, elegant. I feel like these knitwear pieces are more elevated. They're not as casual as a lot of knitwear pieces tend to be. So these are more, nice going out pieces. If you're not a mohair person, might not be thrilled with the amount of mohair that is used in this book, but I feel like in a lot of the patterns, it's pretty easy to substitute out the mohair for, other yarns or other fibers. So there is that note. There's a lot of mohair in here. And again, you have to be kind of into the vintage vibe, I guess, to appreciate most of these patterns. But overall, I love this. I have quite a few of these patterns on my wish list that I do plan on getting. I plan on getting quite a bit of use out of this pattern. And for $25, we know that sometimes knitwear books or pattern books can be quite expensive, which is worth it. The pattern, I'm not saying that it's not worth what you're paying for, even in more expensive books, because we know knitwear design is an underappreciated art form, and designers do deserve to be paid their worth. So I think, regardless of the price, if it's more or if it's less, it's worth it to support knitwear designers that you enjoy their designs and want to support them in that way. So overall, I love this. Let me know your thoughts about the romantic knit books, and until next time.